The film opens with a brutal introduction to Jackson, a man on a mission. He walked into a grimy gym and headed straight for a hulking, bald man who was deadlifting. Jackson's voice was low and calm as he told the man he was sent by the woman he'd harassed the day before. The muscle-bound jerk, a real hothead, just laughed and challenged Jackson. The laugh died in his throat a moment later, as Jackson's brutal efficiency shone through. The fight was over in a blink, and the bald man was left in a crumpled mess on the floor. Jackson leaned in, his voice a cold whisper, telling him that if he ever touched his client again, he'd finish him. He then walked away, leaving the man to his pain. It was revealed that Jackson was a former cop, and his brutal methods got him kicked off the force. Now he worked as a private detective, operating in the shadows. The scene shifted to a recording studio, where famous R&B singer Jahari was struggling to get a take right. She was clearly in a funk, her mind a total mess, and she kept missing her cues. The assistant producer chewed her out and told her to come back the next day when she could get her head in the game. Dejected, Jahari left the studio and walked to her car. She slid into the passenger seat but immediately felt something was off. Her driver was nowhere to be found, and in the driver's seat was a stranger with no intention of taking her home. Jahari's heart sank as she realized she was in a whole new world of trouble. The kidnapper sped off, and Jahari's freedom was gone. Later that night, the film returned to Jackson, who was at a loud, chaotic nightclub. He wasn't there to party. He was there to find someone who was a total handful. Jackson eventually found him in a filthy bathroom, in the middle of a sketchy drug deal. Furious, Jackson tore into his brother and the dealer. The dealer, thinking he was a tough guy, got in Jackson's face. The confrontation lasted only a few seconds. Jackson put the dealer on the floor in a world of pain. After dealing with his problem in the club, Jackson met his client, Gina, for a quiet dinner. He told her about the gym and how he'd put the man who'd bothered her in his place. In that moment, Gina offered to invite him to spend the night with her, and that night ended up as everyone expected. The next morning after Gina left for work, Jackson was home alone. The peaceful calm was shattered when two men showed up at the door. They pulled a gun on him and were ready for a beating, but they had a rude awakening. Jackson was not one to be intimidated. He remained calm, and in a flash of lightning-fast moves, he disarmed them both and took them down without a word. They were just two more bodies on a long list of people who had underestimated him. Later that afternoon, Jackson had to go to a much less bloody confrontation. He showed up at a recording studio to collect a debt from a music producer named Barnes. Barnes was a man who was living a lavish life. Jackson knew for sure that Barnes had sent the two thugs to beat him, and he confronted him for that. But Barnes's calm composure wasn't changing. He calmly said that he sent them to get Jackson's attention, saying he wanted him to work for him to find someone, and that someone was Jahari. Jackson asked for 50 grand for that job, and Barnes gave him the down payment. Jackson then left after taking the money, but not before asking Barnes's assistant, Lonnie, to tell him any information about Barnes, thinking the guy wasn't telling the truth about Jahari. Moments after Jackson left, Barnes received a chilling call from a powerful Asian mafia boss, a woman named Jessie. It revealed that he had a debt to the mob boss. Jessie calmly told him that even though he had given her Jahari as a down payment, his debt was not fully paid. It was revealed that Barnes was a man with a serious problem. He owed a mountain of money to the mob, and he had set up Jahari to be kidnapped and trafficked, a desperate attempt to pay off a small portion of his debt. Meanwhile, in a totally different part of the city, Jackson was approached by his former police chief, a man who believed in him. The chief wanted Jackson to work for him again, to take down Jessie, the very same mafia boss who had been threatening Barnes. Jessie was a ruthless woman who ran a criminal empire based on drugs and human trafficking. The police had been trying to catch her for years, but she was a ghost. The chief knew that only Jackson's brutal, no-nonsense methods could stop her. Jackson didn't say yes right away. He knew that taking on Jessie would be a bloody mess, and he was not ready to go back to that life. He asked for time to think about it. 2 hours later, Jackson met up with someone named Money. The man was a total wreck and had money on his side. It was revealed that Jahari, the woman Jackson was told to find, was none other than Money's girl, and Jackson was sure she had been kidnapped. Jackson asked Money to call her to make sure, and sure enough, she wasn't picking up the call. Panicked, they went to check on her place, and there they confirmed that Johari was nowhere to be found. Money then asked Jackson to help him find Johari, and Jackson, sensing something fishy, agreed to help. In the evening, Jackson went to an event held by Barnes, and there not only did he meet Gina, who turned out to be working with Jesse, but he also met the mob boss, Jesse, and her loyal servant. The following morning, Jackson and Gina were heading out of their apartment to go for a walk. They were just saying hello to the hotel manager when two men on motorbikes attacked them. It was a complete ambush. Jackson's instincts took over, and he managed to dodge the attack, but a bullet hit Gina in the arm. He kicked one of the attackers, and in that single act, ripped the helmet off the man's head, revealing that he was an Asian guy. Unfortunately, before he could get that man, the other biker dragged him away from there. Jackson rushed Gina to the hospital where she was treated for a non-life-threatening wound. He then called Money and told him about the attack. He explained that he had no idea why these two bikers would come after him and that it was a total curveball. Jackson needed answers, and he asked Money if he knew where he could find these guys. Money, a man who was used to dealing with the seedy side of the city, told him he didn't know where they were. But he did know that they hung out at this one club. That was all Jackson needed to hear. He was on a mission for revenge, and he was not going to stop until he got it. He then told Money to look after Gina while he dealt with the jackasses. Upon arriving at the club, Jackson was all business. He walked straight up to a group of men and calmly asked who had attacked him, the one who owned the helmet he had in his hand. They laughed at him, thinking he was just a lone wolf who had lost his way. It was a total ambush. The men charged, and Jackson, with the speed of a pro, took them down one by one.
Whose helmet is this? I got your attention now? You. 2 seconds. Wrong answer. You.
The helmet, it belongs to Jung Sung Lo.
You.
Bruce Lee.
Well, thank you for cooperating.
After he had taken down the whole crew, he went back to the last man standing, a man who was whimpering in pain. Jackson asked again for info about the man he was looking for. The man, not wanting to die, immediately gave up the name, but he also said that the attack on Jackson and Gina was not an order from Barnes, the music producer. With this new information, Jackson stormed out of the club and went straight to Barnes's recording studio. He was a man with a single-minded focus, and he was not going to stop until he got his answers. He found Barnes and immediately put a gun to his head, demanding to know why he had ordered the attack. Barnes, being a total coward he is, started begging for his life. He promised to tell Jackson everything if he just put the gun down. Barnes confessed everything. He told Jackson that he owed a mountain of money to Jesse, a debt he could never repay. In a moment of total desperation, he had sold Johari, Money's girl, to Jesse as a down payment. He knew that Money would come to Jackson for help, so he had hired 2 of Jesse's men to attack Jackson to stop him from helping Money. He swore he never intended to kill him, just to take him out of the picture. Upon hearing it all, he was disgusted by Barnes's lack of a moral compass. He demanded to know where Jesse's headquarters were, and he made a promise that if Barnes ever crossed him again, he would end him. Jackson then went to the hospital to see Gina. He told her he was going to go take care of some business, but he didn't tell her the truth. She asked what was going on, but Jackson was not going to tell her. He just promised to tell her everything when he got back. He then went to see Money, and he told him everything. He told him that Johari was with Jesse and that they were going to get her back. Jackson told Money to get ready because tonight they were going to war. The scene shifted to a chilling note, with Jesse, the ruthless mafia boss, brutally torturing Barnes, the desperate music producer. She was not happy. Barnes was refusing to sell her any more women to pay off his debt. She gave him a terrifying ultimatum: 2 days to pay up or find more women for her human trafficking ring. It was a choice between his own life and the lives of others. A few hours later, Jackson and Money arrived near Jesse's headquarters. It was a well-guarded fortress, but they had a plan. They went to the top of the building, where they were to enter the building from the roof. At the same time, the police chief and his men, disguised as service technicians, were also making their way to the building. The chief's disguise was a total genius move with a sense of comedic twist, and the guards, none the wiser, let them in. Once inside, the chief contacted Jackson via walkie-talkie, confirming they had made it in. It was revealed that Jackson had asked his old boss for help, and the chief, a man who believed in Jackson's methods, had agreed. The plan was a go, but things were about to go south in a total hurry. Meanwhile, in another part of the building, Jahari had managed to get the jump on one of her guards and was hiding in a bathroom. Jackson and Money split up, with Jackson going to find Jesse and Money going to find Jahari. A guard found Money and pulled a gun on him. The chief, seeing what was happening, created a diversion by bursting a gas pipe. Jackson, in the meantime, had followed a trail of footprints to the bathroom and found Jahari hiding. He told her to stay there until he could come back for her. Money, realizing the gas pipe was his only way out, pretended to surrender to the guard. He asked for one last cigarette. The guard, a fool, gave him one, and Money, in a moment of pure adrenaline, threw the lit cigarette at the gas pipe. It was a total firestorm. The fire alarm was blaring, and the whole place was in chaos. Jackson found Jesse's right-hand men. Jackson was a total pro, but he was outnumbered. The fight was a fierce one. 1-on-2 brawl. Jackson was cornered and was ultimately shot by the right-hand man. The right-hand man, thinking he had finally put Jackson in the ground, headed for the exit with his partner. At the same time, the police chief's team, knowing the building was about to blow, made a clean getaway, taking Money with them. Just as the building was about to explode, a miraculous thing happened. Jackson got up. The bullet didn't hit his vital, and he was alive, bruised but not out of the game. He sprinted back to the bathroom, grabbed Jahari, and they got out just as the building was consumed by a fiery hell. From a distance, Jesse watched as her fortress was reduced to rubble. She was livid and promised revenge, a cold, dark look in her eyes as she watched the chaos unfold. A few hours later, Jackson and Jahari were at the hospital getting his wounds tended to. Money rushed in, a total wreck, and hugged Jahari, relieved to know she was alive. Jahari thanked Jackson for saving her life, but he just shook his head and said that she should thank Money, because it was his love for her that had led him to her. With that, Jahari went home. Jackson and Money went to visit Gina, who was also in the hospital, but her room was empty. Jackson's blood ran cold. He rushed to the admin desk, asking if Gina had been discharged. The admin told him she had left an hour ago. He feared the worst. Jesse had done something to her. He and Money rushed to the car, and on the way, Jackson got a call from an unknown number. He answered it, and it was Gina, calling from the telephone on Lonnie's desk. She apologized for not telling him she was leaving and said she was going to meet Jesse. Jackson asked where she was, and Gina said she was at the recording studio Barnes owned. In that moment, Jackson's fear turned into cold rage. He told Gina to get out of there and to avoid anyone who looked Asian. He knew this was Jesse's final move. As Gina was on the phone, the nightmare became real. A group of Jesse's thugs arrived at the location, ready to kidnap her and Lonnie. Gina signaled to him that Jesse and her thugs were there. He told her to hide and hold on, and he and Money sped off to the location. Gina tried to escape, running down the stairs after making an excuse that she was looking for the toilet. When Jackson and Money arrived, Jesse, watching on CCTV, sent all her new goons to attack them. It was a total firestorm, but Jackson and Money were a force to be reckoned with. They fought their way through the whole crew, and then they split up. Jackson went after Gina, and Money went to fight the rest of Jesse's men. Money found Barnes's office and saw that Jesse had already killed him, leaving him in his chair, lifeless. Meanwhile, Jackson finally reached the rooftop and was confronted by Jesse's right-hand men. The fight was a total brawl, a final showdown between three men who were living on the edge. Jackson was a master of his craft, and he took them both down. Jesse then appeared, a smug look on her face, and told Jackson to look over the side of the building. She had Lonnie tied up and ready to fall over the edge. Jesse was a cold, calculated woman, and she told him that this was her revenge for him destroying her empire. Jackson, a man who would do anything to save someone in distress, ran to save Lonnie, but Jesse cut the rope, and Jackson was forced to hold on to the last thread of hope. It seemed like it was a total dead end for Jackson, but then Gina showed up to help. With a water hose with a comically strong power, Gina shot Jesse, and he fell to her demise off the building. In the end, Jackson went back to his home and thanked Money for helping him. Money thanked Jackson for saving Jahari, and they hugged, two brothers who were back in the clear.